Introduction. In tourism today, people rarely travel only to see places. They travel to feel something, to understand something, and to become part of something meaningful. This shift from consumption to experience has changed how tourism must be communicated. Instead of focusing only on facilities, price, or practical information, destinations now need to communicate atmosphere, identity, and values. This is where storytelling becomes important. Storytelling allows tourism actors to translate places and activities into meaningful narratives. Rather than describing what exists, stories help people imagine what it would be like to be there. They build emotional bridges between the audience and the destination. Travel decisions are often emotional and identity-based rather than purely rational. People travel to escape routines, reconnect with nature, explore cultures, or express who they are. Storytelling supports these motivations by presenting tourism experiences in a human and relatable way. In this presentation, storytelling will be explored as a value-creating instrument in tourism. First, I will explain the key elements that make storytelling compelling. This includes narrative structure, emotional engagement, and authenticity, and how these elements influence travel choices. Second, I will describe step-by-step techniques for how storytelling can be used strategically to create value. Storytelling does not happen by coincidence, it is built through deliberate choices about message, characters, progression, and sensory elements. Finally, I will analyze how Nordic narratives resonate globally. Stories connected to heritage, design traditions, and culinary culture often travel beyond their local context because they express universal themes such as identity, simplicity, and connection to nature. Together, these perspectives show that storytelling is not just a communication style, but a structured and strategic tool that shapes perception, meaning, and choice within tourism. 1. Key elements of compelling storytelling. Storytelling is effective because it combines structure, emotion, and authenticity. These elements work together to make stories meaningful and memorable. Structure. A strong story follows a recognizable structure. Storytelling theory describes how narratives are built around message, conflict, characters, and plot. This structure creates coherence and direction, helping audiences understand what the story is about. In tourism, conflict often appears as contrast. It may represent the difference between everyday life and travel, between stress and calm, or between routine and discovery. The journey becomes the movement from imbalance to resolution. This structure gives the destination symbolic meaning, it becomes a solution, not just a location. Emotion. Emotion is central in storytelling. Emotionally engaging stories attract attention and are remembered longer. When people feel something, they are more likely to connect that feeling to a place or experience. Consumer behavior research explains that emotional associations strengthen memory. Tourism communication that triggers feelings such as joy, curiosity, or belonging is therefore more effective than communication based only on information. Authenticity. Authenticity makes stories believable and trustworthy. Audiences respond more strongly to stories that feel real and relatable. When storytelling reflects genuine environments, practices, and perspectives, identification increases. In tourism, authenticity often comes from local voices, traditions, and everyday life. Authentic stories create trust, and trust influences decisions. 2. Step-by-step techniques for creating value through storytelling. Storytelling becomes a value-creating instrument when it is not left to chance, but developed through a structured process. Stories that influence perception, memory, and choice are rarely spontaneous. They are built through deliberate decisions about who the story is for, what it communicates, and how it is experienced. The following steps describe how storytelling can be used strategically in tourism communication. Step 1. Understanding the audience. All storytelling begins with the audience. A story does not exist in isolation, it only gains meaning when interpreted by someone. People bring their own experiences, expectations, and values into how they understand a narrative. In tourism, this means recognizing that different groups seek different meanings from travel. Some may be motivated by adventure and exploration, others by relaxation, learning, or connection to nature. When storytelling aligns with these motivations, it becomes more relevant and engaging. Understanding the audience also means recognizing how people see themselves. According to consumer behavior theory, people are drawn to experiences that reflect their identity or the identity they aspire to. Storytelling can therefore create value by presenting tourism experiences in ways that resonate with how people want to live, feel, or be perceived. Step 2. Defining the core message. Every story needs a clear underlying message, even if it is not stated directly. Without a central meaning, storytelling becomes fragmented and loses impact. In tourism storytelling, the core message may be connected to values such as sustainability, heritage, simplicity, or quality of life. However, these values should not be communicated as slogans. Instead, storytelling allows the message to be expressed through situations, actions, and environments. When audiences experience the message rather than being told what to think, the communication feels more authentic. This aligns with storytelling theory, which emphasizes that the most powerful messages are those the audience discovers for themselves. Step 3. Creating identification through characters. Characters are central in storytelling because they function as emotional anchors. Without characters, stories remain abstract. In tourism storytelling, characters might include local hosts, guides, producers, or visitors. These individuals provide a human perspective that allows the audience to connect emotionally with the story. Identification occurs when the audience recognizes something familiar in the characters, a situation, a feeling, or a value. This sense of recognition strengthens engagement and makes the experience feel more personal. Instead of observing from a distance, the audience begins to imagine themselves in the same environment. Step 4. Building narrative progression. A story must move forward. Narrative progression creates structure and keeps attention. Stories that lack direction can feel static and lose impact. In tourism communication, narrative progression often mirrors the travel experience itself. It may begin with anticipation, continue with immersion in the destination, and end with reflection or memory. This structure helps audiences follow the experience step by step, emotionally as well as cognitively. Progression also creates rhythm. Moments of calm, excitement, discovery, or connection give the story variation and depth. This variation makes the narrative feel alive rather than informational. Step 5. Enhancing the story through sensory elements. Storytelling in tourism often takes place through digital media, where visual and auditory elements play an important role. Images, sound, pace, and atmosphere help shape how the story is felt. Tourism experiences are naturally sensory. Landscapes, sounds, textures, and environments define how places are experienced. Storytelling that reflects these sensory dimensions becomes more immersive. When visual quality, environmental sound, and mood support the narrative, the story becomes easier to remember and more emotionally engaging. Sensory storytelling bridges the gap between representation and imagination. Step 6. Creating meaning and long-term value. The final step is ensuring that the story leaves meaning behind. Storytelling should not only entertain or inform, it should shape understanding. Stories that connect emotion, identity, and place are more likely to be remembered. According to consumer behavior theory, memories formed through emotional and narrative association influence future choices. In tourism, this means storytelling can extend the experience beyond the physical visit. Stories contribute to long-term relationships between people and destinations, supporting loyalty, repeat visits, and positive word of mouth. 3. How storytelling can be used in tourism. 3 practical examples. Example 1. Destination storytelling through contrast. One way storytelling is used in tourism is through narrative contrast. Instead of presenting a destination as a list of attractions, the story follows a person moving from everyday life into a different environment. The narrative conflict here is not dramatic, but symbolic. It may show a person leaving a busy, noisy, and stressful setting and entering a landscape of calm, nature, and space. This contrast functions as the core tension in the story. According to Fogg, Butts, Munch, and Blanchett, stories become engaging when they present a movement from imbalance to resolution. In this case, the destination itself becomes the solution. The place represents relief, meaning, and restoration. This technique creates value because the audience does not just learn about the destination, they emotionally experience what it represents. The destination becomes associated with a feeling, not just a location. That emotional association strengthens memory and influences future travel choices. Example 2, storytelling through local characters. A second way storytelling is applied in tourism is by focusing on people rather than places. Instead of describing a region abstractly, the story follows a local individual, for example a guide, a host, or a food producer. The narrative may show daily routines, personal motivation, and the connection between the person and the environment. Robin and Lambert describe digital storytelling as most effective when it includes a clear point of view and a human voice. Characters create identification. When audiences see real people rather than promotional messages, authenticity increases. This technique creates value because it humanizes the destination. It builds trust and emotional connection. The place is no longer anonymous, it is connected to lived experience and personal stories. According to storytelling theory, this strengthens engagement and makes the experience feel more meaningful. Example 3, storytelling through food and cultural practices. A third example of storytelling in tourism can be seen in how food and cultural traditions are presented. Instead of showing food as a product, storytelling explains origin, tradition, and context. A meal becomes part of a larger narrative about landscape, history, and local life. Fogg et al. Emphasize that storytelling links products to values and identity. When food is connected to heritage, seasonality, and local knowledge, it becomes more than consumption, it becomes cultural participation. This creates value because visitors gain understanding, not only satisfaction. The experience becomes layered with meaning. According to consumer behavior theory, experiences connected to emotion and narrative are remembered more clearly. Storytelling therefore transforms a simple activity into a memorable tourism experience. 4. Nordic narratives with global resonance. Nordic narratives often resonate globally because they combine local identity with universal themes. Storytelling theory shows that stories travel well when they connect specific cultural contexts to broader human values. This is one reason Nordic tourism storytelling often reaches audiences beyond the region itself. One important dimension is the connection to nature. Stories from Nordic contexts frequently highlight landscapes, seasons, light, and climate. These are not presented only as scenery, but as parts of everyday life and cultural identity. Nature becomes a character in the story. According to storytelling principles, environments that shape human life add depth and authenticity to narratives. For global audiences, this connection to nature represents ideas of balance, calm, and reconnection, values that resonate strongly in a fast-paced modern world. Another element is the theme of simplicity. Nordic design traditions are often described through functionality, minimalism, and quality. In storytelling terms, this represents a narrative about living well with less complexity. These stories reflect a lifestyle philosophy rather than a product feature. Because many people experience information overload and material excess, stories of simplicity and intentional living feel meaningful and aspirational. Heritage also plays a role. Narratives connected to history, craftsmanship, and tradition create continuity between past and present. Storytelling theory emphasizes that meaning is strengthened when experiences are placed within a larger context. When tourism stories show how present-day practices are linked to historical knowledge, they create a sense of depth and authenticity. This makes the experience feel culturally grounded rather than superficial. Culinary narratives add another dimension. Food storytelling often links landscape, climate, and tradition. Ingredients are connected to place, and preparation methods are tied to history. These narratives help visitors understand destinations through taste and participation. Storytelling transforms a meal into an experience of identity and belonging. What makes Nordic narratives resonate globally is not only their uniqueness, but their ability to represent universal desires, connection to nature, meaningful living, cultural continuity, and authenticity. Storytelling makes these values visible and relatable, which strengthens emotional engagement and perceived value. Conclusion. Storytelling functions as a value-creating instrument in tourism because it connects how experiences are structured, how they are felt, and how they are understood. Throughout this presentation, storytelling has been shown to be more than a creative technique. It is a strategic approach that shapes perception, meaning, and decision-making. By combining structure, emotion, and authenticity, storytelling helps audiences move from passive observation to personal engagement. Destinations are no longer seen as collections of services, but as meaningful environments connected to identity and experience. This emotional dimension is essential, because travel decisions are often based on how places are imagined rather than how they are described. The step-by-step process demonstrates that storytelling is built through deliberate choices, understanding the audience, defining a clear message, using relatable characters, structuring progression, incorporating sensory elements, and creating meaning that lasts beyond the immediate moment. When these elements work together, storytelling influences memory and shapes long-term relationships between people and destinations. The analysis of Nordic narratives further shows how stories rooted in local culture can achieve global relevance. Narratives of nature, simplicity, heritage, and food resonate because they reflect values many people seek in contemporary life. Storytelling enables these local contexts to communicate universal meaning. Overall, storytelling transforms tourism communication from information delivery into experience creation. It supports trust, strengthens emotional connection, and increases memorability. Because of this, storytelling should be understood not as decoration, but as a core strategic tool for value creation in tourism.